Hi there. I am Priscilla Danielson, and I am very happy that Disability Rights New Jersey asked me to work on this presentation. It is something that is actually new to me from the sense of AT. It is not new to me as a person. It's not something I use. I use other strategies. However, I believe that it has a role for AT specialists for a variety of reasons. I don't have any financial or professional associations. I'm not making any recommendations for one tool over another, nor is this a all-inclusive, absolutely here is everything you can use, but it is to help you think about when you are being consulted for apps and tools that can be used for your population. As with all AT tools, you make sure it's a feature match and do your best. So that's how I'm sort of presenting this versus here's all the apps and here's what they do. Because what I have found, while I love when I get an app wheel, I totally adore it, they change. And there are things out there that we have to think about other than when people just give me a list of apps. Because when I go investigate them, sometimes they don't work as I'd like them to do. So I know as AT specialist and teachers and as special education support staff, you're already doing this. Sorry for the redundancy. I was an adjunct at Temple University and the University of Delaware for about 6 or 7 years, and I taught assistive technology and universal design for learning, as well as assistive technology for high incidence disabilities. I taught at the graduate and undergraduate level. I'm moving on to a new teaching position in a graduate program, and so I'm regretfully leaving two of the most wonderful places for me to have worked with some wonderful students and some very gifted staff. I'm going to miss them all. I am a SLP who has a private practice and has had a private practice for over 30 years. I focus right now in my private practice primarily on AAC and assistive technology consults for legal cases and when school districts are trying to stay out of administrative review and due process. And also helping therapists in a district who might have trouble with a specific skill set. Most of my work has been as an AAC specialist in a public school district in the last 4 years. And my private practice is right now AAC with adults. I like both populations. I have been watching mindfulness creeping into classrooms, and because I am a person as a consultant, I'm only there 1 or 2 days a week. So I always go into the classroom first, hang around, get a feel for things, do whatever they're doing, participate, because I believe that my role is a lot of push-in the classroom for modeling how to use AAC, but I also have to let the students become familiar with me. And I'm finding very often that there is yoga up on the smart board, or we are doing some kind of movements to relax our body. And some of the teachers I know talk to me about how they use some mindfulness tools in their classroom when students are having trouble focusing. I've had some introductory trainings on mindfulness in the public schools. The first time I had to do this, I thought, oh my God, a whole day of mindfulness. I have reports to write. I have funding reports I need to get out. I have so much I need to be doing. And I wasn't a willing participant. By the end of the day, I was a convert. I realized how much this can help students in need, teachers in need, and families in need. And I really believe that we need more support in the schools for behavioral and social interactions in the home and the school that help families grow and feel more confident about their child. With the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders, some of my students that I prepared telepackets for who did not want teletherapy intervention, I know how hard it was for the parents to be a parent and a therapist. I did have a student on this who was on the autism spectrum who literally melted down, Mom said, because the loss of routine, the loss of support staff, the loss of ABA support, and the child with four other siblings literally melted down. And Mom said he has been unable to do anything. That breaks my heart. I did send her some mindfulness tools and told her that maybe this was a way for her to support her son who is having trouble, and maybe they could do some things together. I don't know if she did, but I saw a purpose for it very specifically during this pandemic. My spouse is a practicing Buddhist, and he gave me a ton of information on mindfulness. And because he attends some of these weekend, several-day seminars, he gave me some research, which I haven't delved into yet, but I will, to make sure that at some point Naomi can send all of you the evidence that AT and AAC, and mindfulness have functions and go together. Mindfulness includes all of these activities. I'm not really big on reading PowerPoints. I've never thought my students liked it. And so I am entrusting you to be able to not need me to read these. But it includes all of these things. And as interventionist in the public schools or in special programs, we know that we spend a lot of time helping children make good, healthy choices and be self-aware. Mindfulness brings all of this to the front, and it gives us tools to begin dealing with this in some more creative ways than what we have been traditionally doing. Students and parents will benefit from mindfulness support. These are just some examples of individuals with disabilities who may benefit specifically from support for mindfulness. We often do these things in the school, but we don't always give parents the strategies and the modeling in the home. And I am a very strong advocate that what I do in the school, I want the guardians to be able to do at home, and therefore I will go into the home as often as parents will allow me. Teachers and therapists benefit from mindfulness. When I was working full-time in a public school when my children were younger, I had a lovely office next to a first grade teacher who was an amazing, amazing teacher and was very good at controlling her class and in really positive ways. And I walked out of my office, it was the day before the winter break, and she was having a Christmas party in her classroom, and I walked out of my office to go do something, and she was standing there with her back against the wall, taking deep breaths. And so I went up to her and I said, "Are you okay? Do you need something?" And she said, "No, it is just that we're having a party. Things are getting out of control, and I need to come out here and gather myself before I go back in there. I want to not explode." And so she was taking her deep breaths. She was recognizing that her children were excited and she didn't want to be negative. And so I think teachers and therapists can benefit from mindfulness as well. Students get into stressful situations, and we want to look at using mindfulness before, during, and after events. Children's experience breakdowns in elementary, preschool, middle, and high school. And what we don't want is for them to lose the entire academic day, spending the entire academic day in the sensory room. There's nothing wrong with the sensory room. I am a strong advocate that most language can't develop fully and explicitly unless the person is in control of themselves, and the sensory room is very, very, very important for building those communication skills. I think OTs have brought much to our awareness of supporting students, but being in the sensory room all day does not allow them to be in the academic environment. And we need to help students make better choices so that they don't lose an academic day. Let's face it, stress exists. It exists for me. I have found that working during the pandemic, I have been stressed. I have too much work. I have more work than I can take. I'm tired of looking at my computer. I actually feel that when I move away from my computer, I cannot really see the world the way it should be seen. I'm either taking the stress from my work and moving into my home, or I'm just exhausted from sitting here. And so I recognize that stress exists for everyone. And as we know, with assistive technology, teaching, and AAC, children learn best from our modeling. So when we bring mindfulness into the classroom, I think it's really important that we model, if we're putting a yoga thing up on a yoga program up on the smartboard, we need to be doing it with them. Now, I'm an individual who has a very weird form of muscular dystrophy, and as a consequence, I'm losing my balance. And for me, I love yoga. I love going to yoga classes, but because I can't maintain my balance and some of the poses because of weakness, I laugh out loud and I get so tickled with myself. It works in the classroom, but it doesn't work in a yoga session. For some reason, I've never met a yoga teacher who appreciated my laughing. So I do enjoy being in the classroom with the kids, and I am able to laugh at myself. One of the things that I think we know as specialists is that if you put a particular app on an iPad, or you buy a smartwatch and you're using haptic feedback, you're counting your steps, you're measuring your heart rate, all of that's great, but that doesn't mean you are specifically engaging in mindfulness. Mindfulness is a little bit more. Classrooms can be very overstimulating for students, particularly students who might be on the spectrum and have sensory differences. Students with visual impairments, the noise can be very, very difficult for them. Clothing may not feel the same for them. So we have to be really sensitive to it. And some students who may have high incidence disabilities, they may also experience sensory issues. My daughter has a significant dyslexia as well as some motor feedback issues. And when she was small and into her elementary school, what she wore was really significant. It really impacted her sensory feedback loop. And certain clothes did not feel good on her, and they agitated her. And so we experienced that. That the concept of relaxation response is the opposite of a stress response came out of work at Harvard Medical School in the 70s. And there is a difference. How do we get ourselves to that relaxation place versus that stress place? And everybody I know has stress in their lives. Their lives may look perfect, but there may be something in their life that you don't know about that can be stressful. And so by integrating mindfulness into our classrooms and integrating them into our AT toolbox, we are beginning to focus on stressing the relaxation response for all individuals. Mindfulness is evidence-based. There is research that does indicate when we engage some of the activities associated with mindfulness, you will see changes in blood pressure and temperature and heartbeat. And these are things that we do need to think about for those students who come into our classroom and we really don't know their disability. Many kids with high incidence disability do not disclose, but they are being affected by what's going on in the classroom. Because I'm re-recording this, one of the pieces from the original presentation was evidence for AT and mindfulness. And I will be researching this over the next 2 weeks for Naomi, and I will ask her to email it to you or post it so that we have that in our AT toolbox. I am someone who always communicates to parents why I am recommending a tool based on the literature, not based upon my favorites, not based upon what's the cool thing, but based upon what the literature says works. So I will get that for you. I just don't have enough time to present all that, but there is evidence to support that mindfulness is making a difference for our students. I will specifically address AT though. Where does technology come in with mindfulness? We can use technology to support the meditation and calm that we want students to develop, self-awareness. And also technology has the opportunity to increase our self-awareness and our awareness of how we are feeling and how we are connecting to other people. So there are apps, there are philosophies that behind apps that get us to focus on the emotions that we are feeling and how well we are connecting to other people. I am somebody who will very often come into a classroom and hug my students. I'm not going to get to do that anymore. And hug the staff that are very close to me. And I have been working with a wonderful para, and we have developed a hug system, and we often have to say, this is probably going to get us in trouble with HR, but when we walk into the classroom, we are each other's best support system. And we just really like each other and have worked well together. I'm going to miss that. So on the flip side, I am going to have to focus more on where I am. And so I may need to engage some tools more often. If you're an AT specialist, you are very aware that people look to you as the authority. I don't believe that AT specialists, myself, public school teachers, special educators are authorities in mindfulness. But the literature that's coming out, the introduction of it into the classroom is real, and people are really interested in it. So what we need to do is build our knowledge base so that we can make good recommendations. When a teacher comes to us with a suggestion, that we can support them with the technology that will help them build the tools that they're thinking about. Some of the AT tools that I think you can use now, I don't know why I said these were just low tech, because they're not. I apologize for that. But there are some, what I wanted to emphasize is that low tech has a very real place in mindfulness. And we'll look at some of those low-tech tools that you can use. But the tools that you can use to help a teacher build mindfulness supporting tools is lesson picks, not very expensive, and a wonderful, wonderful set of symbols. Boardmaker. Both of these have libraries which may already have what you need. The use of clip art, photos from, I'm blocking on it. Can't remember right now, but we can get photos off online that photographers have taken and that we very much now are able to access in the public schools. The word will come to me. I apologize. You're probably thinking about it yourself, and you know it. But how we use our bodies and our mind are also real things. And seeing one of the my philosophy about working with children on the spectrum, even adults who have AAC, is I want to do as much as I can to be aware of their sense of stress. Even when I'm working with adults who have AAC, who use AAC, when I am asking them to do something new, something different, I will see real stress. And one of the things we talk about in our sessions is how are they going to deal with that stress? It's for me to say calm down to somebody who has minimal control of their motor, is engaged in highly spastic movements. Calm down makes absolutely no sense. And so we work on strategies that actually help them to get through it. Some high-tech tools, I think we should always be prepared for what teachers and parents or students ask of us. And do these things work? Or is it an appropriate app for this student and their family and the classroom? So be prepared, be knowledgeable. There are some great apps. There are some wonderful apps that include tools for children and teens and families. They're out there. I know some of the apps that are directed towards mindfulness now might have some high cost, but sometimes we are still engaged in AT for a specific student, and investing $56 a year or $99 a year may be a necessity for this student. YouTube has many things that we can use. I do not encourage my students to spend a lot of time on YouTube. They get lost in it. I get lost in it. But YouTube does have some very effective tools to support mindfulness in the classroom. Some computer programs that might work are screencasting, like I'm doing with Camtasia, letting students build their own mindfulness strategies and tools in a Google slide or a PowerPoint, and then recording it so that they can go back and listen to it, and when they're involved it makes more sense to them. You can also, if you have Zoom available, record yourself so the student can see themselves calming down. Creating avatars, one of the websites that links that I'm going to talk about uses an avatar, and it's just great. Kids love avatars. I have begun to get into Powtoons. I have paid for the higher subscription versus just the free one. And I'm beginning to use them to build tools for my website. I love it. I think individuals can be very creative. And here's another way for students to create their own mindfulness tools. They do have some free tools on Powtoons that you can use. This gentleman, I'm not even going to try to say his last name and embarrass myself, but he has done quite a bit of work with mindfulness and technology. And one of the things I really liked about what he was talking about is that even when you're doing something as simple as using your cell phone or your tablet, pay attention to how you feel, what you're doing, and what you're seeing. Involve yourself. I share an office with my husband. He is an IT architect, or was, before he started rebuilding a home. And he is extremely critical of technology. And it drives me insane because if I can't work it out, I come back to it. If he can't work it out, he verbally starts expressing stress. It drives me insane. However, how things work is really important to him because he spent his whole career in the field of technology. But this gentleman, Rohan, is speaking about when we're using technology, how do we use it? And, we can use technology to facilitate mindfulness by being aware of your body. When you're surfing the web, be aware of what you're tapping. How do you feel when you open that up? Are you attending to your own attention and your own emotions? When you're scrolling on the phone, are you being aware of what you're doing? And are you breathing through the activities? Just as when you're watching TV, are you just watching the screen and not the content? And so I think if we think about technology from that perspective, we can immediately understand our role in technology and mindfulness, in terms of mindfulness. When you are beginning to use mindfulness tools, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. As AT specialists, we know that sometimes we have to get in there and fix it ourselves. But as participants and collaborators, we don't always have to do that. This school district, excuse me, my mouse has a tendency to have a life of its own. Oops, I went the wrong way. Sorry about that, gang. These things happen. This school district has a great website about a virtual calming room. And some of you may be involved in creating those online for your classroom, your school, or your district. This school district has some very good tools. And this describes their mindfulness classroom. And they use an avatar, so it gives you an example. Stop and Relax has been around for a while. They have many suggestions and readings for you to use that may be very helpful for you. Break cards. These are things that teachers can use in the classroom for students who know that they are getting out of control. And you, if you're using technology, can use, lesson picks, clip art, board maker to create these break cards for the classroom. Now, break cards can be individualized or generalized, and you will determine that as the interventionist in your classroom. But break cards also support students making good decisions. And talking about how they're feeling and what tools they're going to use. And our role is to help the student not use break cards as a means of escape, but as a means of functioning. This link will take you to some images of break cards. So if you are trying to create some for classrooms, you will have a little bit of help. A break pass, it helps to reduce kids having to leave the classroom frequently. They can be variable lengths, this break, longer for elementary, shorter for high school. They are very cooperative. Students should participate in the development of their own break cards. And you can develop a system where, okay, we're starting with 10, and you used 9 yesterday. If we can use 8 today, what do you think we should do to reward ourselves? Because you're actually getting better control of having to leave the classroom. And I'm seeing more of your lovely face and charming personality. So how are we going to do that? And so when we engage students, I've always found when I'm creating low-tech materials that if my student is involved in the creation, that they use it more. And they engage it more. So break passes are another tool. Supports for calming down. This is an example of using BoardMaker to create vocabulary for calming down. Just as it doesn't work when I'm stressed and I know that I'm going for my husband's throat, and he says, "Why don't you just calm down?" Instead of just going for his throat, it's straight for fork in the eyes. Yes, I'm going to jail. It doesn't work. If he can say something else to me, and some acknowledgement, and help me understand my feelings, things go better. But very often we just want to resort to telling people rather than saying, well, what are you actually feeling, so that we can address it. So all of these are links, active links to low-tech tools that you can use to help students calm down, and that may be using some of the technology that we as teachers and AT specialists have in our toolbox. Developing breathing techniques and relaxation routines. There are tools on our computers which we can put on the smartboard. There are apps that we can use to help us with relaxation and breathing. And we also need to teach our students about healthy venting versus dumping. And you know that some students who get really angry and upset dump on us. And we're used to it. But we now, when we're thinking about mindfulness and having children be aware of their emotions and how do we get them there, teaching them about healthy venting. You have something to say. Yes, I do want to hear it. But I want to hear what helps me help you. Dumping doesn't do that. And we've all done it as adults with our family, with our partners, and occasionally with our children. But in a classroom, we need to help kids be able to do that, and some of our technology tools may help them address that. There are some low-tech tools, yoga card decks. I think these are really cool in that here's the yoga move we're going to try in the classroom. Here's what the animal that may be associated with that. So students can make connections. And again, this helps our students to engage it. There are books and apps for creating yoga decks and making part of yoga part of your classroom routine. And they are out there. Here's a link to help you get started in creating these tools, low-tech tools for mindfulness. The mid and high-tech tools that I'm going to talk about are not all inclusive. They're just suggestions for you to think about. But when you are selecting an app, I think you need to think about some things very specifically. Is it age appropriate for that student? Or what part of it is age appropriate for that student? And then if you're paying for this very expensive app and only a very small piece of it works, is this the best app? Can the app be multilingual? We are all working in not just a multilingual community anymore. We are working in a universal community. We are working at a level where we have to engage cultures. And so it's not just multilingual, but it's multicultural that we are experiencing. So can what you're using be done in that? And there is some literature that says if we create tools in the child's home language as well as English, then they can be taken home. It can be used in the home where English may not be the primary language, and it can be used in school for that transitioning. And the other thing I want you to think about is data collection. Some apps do collect data on the individual. Do you want that for your student? FERPA is real. And do parents want data being collected on their child? And is the app more distracting than helpful? You all know this. Is the app just going to wrap the kid up in playing with the app versus using the app? There is an app called Breathe, Think, Do with Sesame. It is bilingual. It is not, it has a short end zone, and that's how I think about apps. How long is it before I reach the end of the app? But it is a very good tool for young classrooms and young students. Calm, you've all seen, well, no, I'm being presumptuous and I apologize. I've seen Calm being advertised on TV, and I looked into it. And what did not help me was the cost. I wasn't ready to take the leap into an app with a high subscription rate. Because I am a private practitioner, I have to pay for all of these things on my own. And so, apps are expensive for AAC, and I wasn't ready to do it. However, it does have some very good tools for sleeping and dealing with anxiety. So it is worth looking at for some of your students, maybe individually. Headspace, meditation and sleep. There are children that we encounter who have difficulty with school anxiety, particularly some children in high school. So something like this may be very, very good for them, for those teenagers, and for children with their adult guardians. It is a subscription, but they have stories, and so it's worth looking at as an AT tool that may be very beneficial for some students. And school phobias are very real, and they occur for all kinds of reasons. I remember a student whose mom had a disease process where her heart could fail at any moment. And this is something she made her son aware of from elementary through high school. And as a consequence of that, he developed a really significant school phobia, primarily because he was so concerned about his mom. And so we are now talking about some home interventions, some work with social workers, but there were real tools that the school developed that helped this student integrate himself back into the classroom and into the school. An amazing school counselor who really, really saw into this student and helped him. But some of these apps may be very helpful, and at that time these apps were not available for that student. The Smiling Mind app, there's nothing wrong with being reminded that we can feel better. Super Stretch Kids for Yoga, great little app because it has animations, and it helps with the yoga moves, and kids can put it on different tablets and take it home, as well as using it in school. So these can be used more with students. Dreamy Kid app, it has a school-based program, so if your whole school wants to be using it, and we're all talking and using the same language, but it does help with meditation. The Calm Counter app has, it's not a very complex app, but it does help kids deal with those very strong emotions, and it does have some different voices. And so it may be something that a kiddo can access. Very often I have kids come in and they love to swipe. Mom's iPad, they just love to swipe it. But what are they swiping? And what are they using that swiping for? And this may actually be a tool you can use. Buddhify is a really cool app, and you can individualize it for children and adults, where you create your own wheel for mindfulness tools that will help you, and some timers involved, some guided meditations. It does have some cost, but it is a really cool app. I looked at it, and it's one of those where I thought this would be a good investment to actually use as a way of talking about AT tools and technology with staff and families. Mindfulness cards are low tech, and this link will bring you to Amazon. It's just an Amazon link. You may be able to go directly to the purveyor. But what I like about the concept of the mindfulness cards is that they can be placed around the classroom, and students can come up with them to them and see them, and it's a reminder. Look what I found. You could go on a scavenger hunt, a mindfulness scavenger hunt, and talk about the cards you found. You can give them to parents to place around the home, so when we come upon them, we start talking about them. Remember that modeling and using the vocabulary for the students that they can use. Breathe Meditation and Sleep does have a program for kids and teens. And so I tried to find some tools that were good for students, not just adults. Some bedtime readings and guided meditations. So individuals who are just starting with meditation need some guided work on how to do it. And so it may help you develop the right vocabulary. Timers, we've all used timers in the classroom, and thank goodness for those visual timers. This one is very good for beginners, has some different kinds of meditations, those reminders, those bells. One of my favorite professors at Temple uses the mindfulness bell to bring us all back to our best place when we are in his office. And at first it drove me crazy because that's not how I work. But the more I was aware of it, the more I noticed my language, my voice changing. So something like this may be good to get going. Yoga workout, this has some very short ones. It's very good for beginners. And it might be a great app to put on a middle school or teen to just let them do it at home. And I don't know what schools are going to look like in September. I'm not sure anybody does. And so kids having things that they can do at home is good to use. So that's it, folks. That's all I have for you. I know I talked a lot, and this was a 30-minute presentation. I probably went way over it, and I apologize. But I hope this is beneficial. I will get the research and send it to Naomi, and hopefully it will be helpful. Thank you all for investing your time. Have a great day. Bye.